Good evening to this special meeting of Troy City Council for Monday, August 9th, 2021. My name is William Lutz, President of Council. We begin with the roll call. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Twist.
Here.
Mr. Rozelle.
Here.
Mrs. Snee. Here. Mr. Whidden.
Here.
Mr. Swazer.
Here.
Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Mr. Sievert.
Present.
Mr. Schilling.
Present.
Mr. Terwilliger.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. As this is a special meeting, Mrs. Knight, will you please read the acknowledgement of notice of the special meeting of Troy City Council for Monday, August 9th, 2021.
Notice of special meeting of the City Council addressed to all members of council. You are hereby notified that there will be a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Troy, Ohio, at the council chambers in said city on Monday, the 9th day of August 2021 at 5:30 p.m. or shortly after, for the purpose of considering resolution number R30 2021, authorizing executing settlement agreement documents related to opioid litigation. I will send this to be signed by all members of council.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. All members of council received with their notice the memorandum from Mr. Titterington and a copy of resolution number R30 2021 up for discussion. Is there any discussion regarding the resolution? Mr. Titterington, do you have anything you want to add?
Only that the reason for the special meeting is that our next council meeting is the 16th. We have a drop dead date to be in the settlement of the 13th, which is why we needed to do this tonight. And it is requested that we do emergency legislation.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Titterington. With that, are there any comments or questions from council members at this time?
If I may.
Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Titterington, are there any conditions or obligations that we're going to be under with any acceptance of money?
The use of the money will be restricted to certain activities and certain programs. Not quite sure exactly what those are, but of course they will be involved in opioid recovery and enforcement, those kind of activities, but it's still kind of a work in progress, I think.
Okay, thank you. Well, wait a minute, back up, or additional question on that. Then who's going to decide those conditions?
We can have a report deck to the council. We don't even know how much we would receive because the amount that will be in the pool will depend on how many municipalities sign on to the MOU. And then from that point, then there will be a distribution between the state and between the municipalities and other entities. So without knowing how much and what the exact criteria are, it's difficult to say at this point.
Will it be state-driven, or will it be within the municipalities themselves and hierarchy that will make those determinations?
Sure. There were some basic parameters when the council passed the legislation authorizing us to participate in the litigation. Those were strings, if you will, that the state put on so that they could decide what percentage goes to them and their programs and what is then trickled down to the municipalities. But again, without having the exact criteria yet in place, it's hard to tell.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Mrs. Knight, will you please read resolution R30 2021?
Resolution number R30 2021, a resolution authorizing recommendation to accept the One Ohio opioid settlement and enter into the participation agreement with opioid distributors Amerisource, Bergen, McKeeson, and Cardinal Health, and declaring an emergency. This is the first reading.
I'll move for suspension.
Second.
It's been moved to suspend the three reading rule by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Snee. Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rozelle.
Yes.
Mrs. Snee. Yes. Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mr. Swazer.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Terwilliger.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
And move for adoption.
Second.
The three reading rule has been suspended. It's been moved to adopt the resolution by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Schilling. Are there any final comments or questions? Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Snee.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mr. Swazer,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Schilling,
Yes.
Mr. Twilliger,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. This concludes the special meeting of Troy City Council for Monday, August 9th, 2021. You're all invited to stick around for the committee of the whole items. Do you want us to have a clean stop here so that we can stop the video and then